Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Lewis Center interview series. Today, we have my friend and UIW colleague, Carlos de León, as our special guest. Carlos currently teaches marketing and management at the University of the Incarnate Word, but also leads the San Antonio office of ROMPH.POU, Louisiana's largest full-service marketing agency, representing clients in over 20 states. His client portfolio spans various industries, including public sector entities, oil and gas, healthcare, finance, higher education, tech, and real estate development. Carlos's career has also extended to public service. He served as Director of Community Engagement for Bexar County Commissioner Tommy Calvert. Through his service with the University of the Incarnate Word's Office of Research and Graduate Studies, Carlos contributed to UIW's recognition as a bright spot in Hispanic education by the White House Initiative on Educational Excellence for Hispanics. Furthermore, Carlos currently serves on the Community Health Advisory Board for UT Health San Antonio's Institute for Integration of Medicine and Science. And prior to embarking on his career in marketing, Carlos enriched his understanding of cross-border relations as part of the U.S.-Mexico binational think tank, Mexicans and Americans Thinking Together, Inc. This experience cultivated his passion for building bridges between cultures and promoting collaboration. Carlos, thanks so much for dedicating time to our interview. It's always great to connect with you, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Hoyle. The pleasure is all mine. I truly believe in the mission of the Lewis Center, and it's a pleasure to be able to visit with you and visit with everyone that tunes in to learn more about the Lewis Center.
Great to have you, Carlos. You know, you and I first met when you reached out to me responding to a Lewis Center announcement that Nobel Peace Laureate Rigoberta Menchú would be our honored guest speaker for our 2023 instance of our Leaders of the Americas speaker series. You were one of the first people to reach out, and we spoke that day on a number of topics, including your Guatemalan heritage. I learned that day that you were born in Quetzaltenango and that your Guatemalan heritage is an important part of your identity as a Latino. But I also found out that your identity has been shaped by multiple other Latino, Latinx cultural lines and influences. Tell us a little bit, Carlos, about your particular Latino identity and how you forged it.
No, well, I appreciate that initial question, Dr. Oriel. I think it's very important, especially as we come, we finish Hispanic Heritage Month. I think it's important for always to reflect on your raíces and where you come from. And my particular case, I do come from Guatemala. I was born in Quetzaltenango. My mom's side of the family was highly politically involved in Guatemala. My great uncle, which was my mother's uncle, was president of the Christian Democratic Party, and he served in Congress, and he had a very prominent role in government during those very turbulent years of Guatemalan history. Unfortunately, because he believed in democracy and the democratic movement that was occurring in the 80s, and just being able to rein in the significant human rights violations that were occurring, he became very vocal about it. And unfortunately, he was politically assassinated in the late 80s or early 80s, rather. And as a result of that, during the late 80s and throughout the 90s, a lot of my family members ended up having to leave Guatemala, and that kind of pushed my family out as well. It wasn't necessarily economic reasons. It was very much security and what was going on in the country. And it was almost kind of like a little bit of a homecoming for me, because my mother's uncle was a huge supporter of Rigoberta Menchú's father at the time, who led an indigenous committee for improving the conditions of the campesinos, and as well as really putting a spotlight on the human rights violations that were occurring during the military dictatorship years. So for me, it was an opportunity not only to honor this great woman who came to San Antonio and tell her story, and her, really honor the message of peace and justice that she shared with us. But personally, it was also an opportunity for me to reflect on my raíces as well, and why we're here in San Antonio in the first place. And like you're mentioning, I came here at a very young age. I came here in 1993 with my family. at the time, we didn't know that we were going to end up living in San Antonio, and kind of life, took it's a different path. My mom, her intentions were to actually go with her brother who lived in Canada, who had successfully had, acquired political asylum in Canada. My dad at the time, he had a very successful exportation business, and he exported goods and services and vehicles from the U.S. to Guatemala, and vice versa. And he was very much involved in international commerce. And unfortunately, with the issues that the country was facing, and obviously the connections with my family, we basically ended up having to start over here in San Antonio, and think life happens, and our intentions of going to Canada didn't come to fruition. We ended up calling San Antonio home, and now I'm very proud to call San Antonio my home, and obviously to be an American as well, or be a U.S. citizen. It was a very grueling journey and process. But I do truly believe that I'm here today because of the community where I come from, right? And I, growing up and trying to really identify who I was as an individual, knowing that, there was this huge history behind me as well. I was almost in an identity crossroads, trying to really figure out, where I fit in the world, and during those formative years, as an immigrant, and as a Guatemalan, because there's not a lot of Guatemalans here in San Antonio. So I was trying to find my space in the world, and at that time, my godmother, she was highly involved in helping refugees from Central America. Her name is Laura Sanchez, and she had an organization at the time that helped provide medical services and other legal services, as well as other assistance to immigrant communities. And at the time, my mom, through her medical background, started to provide healthcare services for these migrants that have, very differently from my experience, who I had the fortune of coming to the U.S., via plane. These migrants were crossing borders through, the trains or other means, and most of them that ended up, under the care of my godmother, had lost limbs. So at a very young age, I saw the sacrifice that individuals go through to be able to come to the promised land, right, of the U.S. and try to live their lives. And my mom was very fortunate to have these skills to be able to provide medical care for these individuals. And looking at her and the sacrifices that she did, and I'm very grateful for those experiences, because it really opened up my eyes to humanity. And again, during that period, the height of anti-immigrant sentiment was very high. I mean, it's almost kind of reflective of what we're currently living right now. And it was around the time of the Sensenbrenner bill, around SB 1070 with Arizona, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was looking at ways to be able to find my voice, and somehow I found my home in the Chicano movement here in San Antonio. And I got involved with various community organizations, and I found a platform to be able to advocate for the community as a whole. I became involved with the Cesar Chavez March for Justice. As an undergrad student at UIW, I was involved and led the organizing of students for the annual Cesar Chavez March for Justice. I did all the coordination for that. I was involved with community organizations like the Brown Berets. I'm very proud of that membership. I helped during that platform not only advocate for immigrant rights, but I also was involved in high profile cases of racial profiling with police entities here in San Antonio, where we brought to spotlight those abuses and those issues that needed to be addressed to improve community relations. So we were able to help organize communities and really stand up for their rights. Doing that, we helped prevent the closure of inner city schools here in SAISD through my involvement with the Brown Berets. So all of that is my community, community activist roots, where like I said, mentioned, I found my voice and my identity through the Chicano movement, very much sharing a lot of the same issues that I was having, where you don't necessarily fit fully into American society, but you're not also, Mexican, as, recognized by Mexicans. I felt the same way as a Guatemalteco, right? I'm not, I fully couldn't identify myself as Mexican, because our cultures are different, even though we share similarities.
Sure.
But then at the same time, obviously I'm an immigrant, and during this anti-immigrant sentiment, it was, I felt embraced by this community, and I'm proud of being able to have done all of this great work through the organizations that I've been involved with. And ever since then, I've always tried to figure out a way to be able to advance my Latinidad and my love for my community in ways of giving back to the community that I serve. And I've been very fortunate for the past 10 years, 11 years now, to have hosted and organized a toy drive for refugees being relocated here to San Antonio, and from variety of areas of the world, from the Middle East, from Southeast Asia, from Latin America. And all that has been influenced by that community work, reflecting back on my godmother, reflecting back on the sacrifices of my parents. And I'm very grateful for my parents, because they started from over, essentially, when we first came to the U.S. But at the same time, they gave us these foundational, pillars of us, of, regardless of where you go in life, no one can take away your morals, your values, and your education. And those were the three pillars that essentially, they drilled down in us. And, talking to other immigrants, it's almost kind of like a shared archetypal thing as well, right? Those are things that are, as Latinos, we come to really value. We work hard to be able to earn our place in the community and the country that we live in, and we don't take for granted the opportunities that are afforded to us. And that's, in my way of honoring those lessons, I feel like I need to be civically engaged and be able to contribute to my community more than just, my work, but also in public service. And those are all, those are all rooted with that community activism, with trying to figure out, what my identity is as a Latino. And now that I'm in a place where I, have direct contact with decision makers and folks and places that do have an impact on the community, that influences the way that I push forward an agenda or bring things up to the table, because I feel like there's still very much an opportunity for us as a Latino community to really advocate an agenda to be able to help our community, whether that is addressing issues of access to healthcare, addressing issues of economic development. Those are all things that I for the past years and decades, the call to action was, well, we need representation. Well, now that we have representation and we have people in elected offices and people in positions, I think as our community and coming from that grassroots that helped me develop, I think now the conversation should be, well, we now have representation, and we should look towards advocating for an agenda that's broad enough to be able to uplift our community. And I'm able to be fortunate in the field of work that I work in, to be able to help provide opportunities for where I can advance that and in very authentic ways. Because the success of our Latino community is the success of our community as a whole. And I feel that those experiences of life of being an immigrant, of the community organizations that I were involved with, of my parents' own experiences, have really shaped that. And in addition to that, it pays an honor to the legacy of my mom's side of the family, who have been public servants for lifetime.
That's great. I love hearing you about your journey, Carlos. You mentioned it. At one point, it was a grueling journey. and also an amazing and an awesome journey that clearly you've processed and thought about it, and you've had many years to reflect on that journey. I wish you would have could have spoken at our Hispanic Heritage Symposium that was just finished 3 days. It was a 3-day Hispanic Heritage Symposium at UIW. We had 14 presentations from faculty members and administration, and one of the sessions led by Arturo Chavez, Dr. Arturo Chavez, who now is leading the Cesar Chavez March for Justice, and we've been out there a number of times together, and it's still going strong. But was on just the complexities of Latino identities, and how even though on certain forms and census questionnaires we have to pick our box, but there's so many different ways that you are Latino, that we are Latinos, and I think it's really important also for, I think, our kind of our young Latinos, some of whom they know exactly who they are at a young, but others they don't know yet exactly who they are, and they realize it can be a journey, and that's okay. It can take years to really figure it out, and it's grueling and it has challenges, but I'm a believer that the more complex the journey, that there's great benefits to result from that complexity. And I want to ask you, and you touched on it a little bit, Carlos, but those cross-cultural experiences that you've had, which were not only coming from Guatemala, but cross-cultural between Guatemalteco and the Chicano movement. There was a bit of a crossing of cultural lines there as well, and others that you've had. And you've had them from a very early age, right? From an early age, you had cross-cultural experiences, cross-national experiences, cross-border experiences, cruzando fronteras. How have those experiences benefited you in the work that you do at ROMPH.POU?
So I feel like those experiences have really benefited me, because it really has opened up my perspective of the importance, like I mentioned, about representation and about bringing people to the table. As a marketer, I feel that it's very important when you start working with brands, and as you start being strategic about the work that you do with brands. It's all about positioning and what position they hold in the marketplace and within the environment that they operate in. Well, that has a direct reflection on those cross-cultural experiences, because the environments that we operate in a very internationalized world is very multifaceted and very complex, like you're talking about, and it's all these different fibers of this fabric that come together that bring our identity and our community as a whole together. And it's that fabric that is strengthened through the storytelling of various communities coming together and sharing those common stories and identities together. So it's really shaped me to be very authentic and very intentional and purposeful with the work that I do, in the sense of it's about understanding the nuances of the community that you operate in. It's understanding the groups that make up your community, and it's how to best to communicate and bring those stories to life. I've been very fortunate to work with clients in major markets, like, for example, in the South Bay and in the San Francisco area, where that community is very diverse and it's very complex. You have people from Latin America, you have a lot of Asian influence. And as a result of that, I was very intentional, because of an understanding of my own experiences as an immigrant, as a Guatemalteco, and not really being able, like you said, being able to have the opportunity to just facetiously check a box and be like, okay, I'm going to fit myself in this little box. I felt it was very important for me, as I was brought into this new project, to be fully integrated into community. What is that motivates the community to be healthier lives? Because this particular client is a healthcare client. What do people want to live for, that they're going to be able to then seek out quality healthcare? And that is where you start really drawing that authentic storytelling. And I go back to the storytelling because that is what moves people to, that's how you connect with people. It's that messaging, it's that storytelling. And I've been fortunate to, when I take on a new project, to look at things very granular and understand the nuances of why it's important for us to be able to connect with people authentically and then bring them to the forefront. So working with a client such as El Camino, we know that Southeast Asians have a high propensity of heart and cardiovascular issues. Well, the hospital was very intentional about creating a program that focused specifically on cardio care for Southeast populations. Well, then that translates to us as marketers is how do we take all that great work that is being done to establish this program and communicate with the community that this is happening with this particular client. And it's again it's reflective in the visual storytelling that we do with our creative, and it's also done with the messaging. In the sense that the way that we communicate the work that is being done again needs to be reflective of those nuances of why they should seek out the help that the resources that this particular hospital offers, and it's done again through understanding the nuances of the community that we're operating and that the hospital is operating as well, and in addition to that, I've worked with clients in the oil and gas industry as well, where they're in the business of creating revenue, right? They're oil extraction and so forth, but they're no longer operating in the silos. They're operating in communities that are directly impacted by the work that they do, and in a lot of these cases, it's resources that they're using that could have an adverse impact on the community that their neighbors next to them. So in my particular case, I've been fortunate enough to work with oil and gas clients going down to South Texas and really understanding the Mexican American community that lives in South Texas, and how best to communicate the value of these companies being in these communities, more than just being an employer, but rather as entities that support the development of communities, whether that's through community grants or other type of work that they do. All of that is values of the community that we're operating in and how best they can fit into the greater scheme of things, and that's been very helpful. Again, really understanding the role of cross-cultural competency of knowing the nuances that it has led to me to be very successful. And I've been fortunate to take that experience to an agency like ROMPH.POU, where now they're no longer focusing on general market marketing, but now it's there's a larger understanding that we have to be very intentional and purposeful in representation and the way that we communicate and the way that we strategically help our clients understand that they play a larger role in the environment that they're doing business with and the community that they're doing business with. Because at the end of the day, it's about what value you offer and what position you have in the marketplace.
What an interesting answer, Carlos. And I think a lot of you're in advertising and marketing. A lot of I think this is what the stereotype, right, of the advertising guy, right, the marketing guy. It's like the money hungry, like I just in it for the money. Let's make that sale, and it's such a limiting, incorrect stereotype of so many like super interesting people in the advertising and marketing. But I think it's good for this message is also to let our students know, like if you're interested in advertising and marketing, like it's not all about the money and making the sale. It's this whole understanding of the community you're trying to reach out to and your ability to impact your client as well, and helping your client to understand the value of the public, of the community that they're reaching out to, is really super interesting. So thank you for that answer. You found a way to be very successful in your career in advertising, and your cross-cultural background, of course, contributed to that success. But you're not only in advertising and marketing. As we mentioned earlier, you've also dedicated time to cultivate your passion for teaching and sharing your experience and knowledge in the classroom. That's a lot. I mean, you're teaching, and you are also have this really important position at ROMPH.POU. How do you balance the responsibilities? Are you sometimes tempted to just focus on one thing or the other?
No, that's an excellent question, and as I reflect on it, I think it's very important, because I feel, and I've learned from mentors in the past and individuals with significant experience, that you really can't call yourself a master of your craft unless you teach it. And I have really loved the opportunity to be able to work with working adult students, getting them to understand talking about nuances, understanding the nuances of a field of marketing, and letting them really broaden their interest, in the sense that there's the work that you do can be very intentional and can be very purposeful in helping brands and advance, and the storytelling behind it and the creativity behind it. So for being able to take all that experience and put it into the classroom has been very important, because I feel like there's an opportunity to really build up the next generation of marketers, to have the opportunity to really understand what role they play in. It's not always about the bottom line. It's about the impact that your work can have at a much larger scale. And marketing allows that, because it's a creative field that allows you to explore those areas of storytelling, of connecting with the community, of the impact. And again, it's for me, it's a refinement of my skills, of knowing that I can, if I'm going to say I'm a marketer, or I'm an advertiser, or I do public relations, or I do public affairs, I can then turn around and say, I'm also teaching it, because I know my craft well. So I've enjoyed the experience of taking that experience and putting it into the classroom, and that challenge of really, as an individual, knowing and understanding what the discipline is of marketing and putting it into a classroom setting. And then, as a public servant at heart, I feel it's also, like I mentioned, it's the opportunity to develop future marketers, and really instill them that if I can do it, so can they. And that there's greater purpose than just the bottom line, or just being another business function. There's work that can be very rewarding and very positive for your community through this marketing field. And so I've been able to be very fortunate to work with an agency like ROMPH.POU and an institution like UIW that values me being able to balance both, right? So ROMPH.POU understands that I work with UIW and that I teach, and the university values from the experience of being able to have someone like myself who has a marketing agency background, and taking that experience and putting it into the classroom. And I've been fortunate for the past 4 years to be able to find a balance in both. And if there's something that, a best practice that I've learned along the way, or if there's something innovative that we're using in the agency, I can take that experience and take it to the classroom and have students really explore that further. And sometimes I've been fortunate enough to be able to just, especially in my intro to marketing courses, I do a lot of case studies, and I also, when I do teach, I do discuss a lot about my experiences with clients. And some of the best ideas are from students that they bring a different lens and a perspective. And so for me, it's like an opportunity to, again, see these marketing issues or these marketing case studies or these innovative trends that are ongoing or we're experiencing or learning from our work on a day-to-day basis, and see it from a new perspective of a student. And that's been, for me, very enlightening. And I'm sure for my students, it's been rewarding as well to be able to see how the connections are the content and the information that they're learning through the textbook is not just from an academic setting, but how, all of that information and all that theory is used and put into practice. So again, it's been a very rewarding opportunity for me to be able to teach, and obviously it provides a higher purpose in a more rewarding setting to call myself a marketer now, because again, I'm not only doing it in practice and advancing my field work, but also teaching it, and to me that's been very rewarding, and I'm very fortunate to be at an institution like UIW that values that, and as a whole, again, being able to work with students is something that is truly rewarding, because I reflect back on my professors that I was been working with at UIW, and I'm able to continue with that legacy of as a student as a student of color, to see someone teach a course or an area of study that I'm passionate about, that looks like me and sounds like me. I'm sure I'm helping that student realize, well, I have a field and an opportunity to be able to pursue this discipline. So it's very multifaceted, and it's very, for me, it's rewarding to be able to go between both worlds, and kind of bring down a little bit of that curtain between academic and practice, and an area of as competitive as it is as marketing.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me, Carlos. You make perfect sense to me. Sometimes when you have people like yourself who are really busy and involved in different things, I think some people may get the impression like this guy Carlos de León, this guy's all over the place, and that expression of being all over the place, it kind of suggests like kind of like a chaos, like here and there, but just the more I talk to you, Carlos, it's not all over the place. To me, I just want you to know, you're like a coherent whole. Everything, your teaching, your career. We're talking about balancing those two, but then it's career, it's teaching, and then the community service piece. And then and we don't even have time to get into your family culture, but all of that to me is part of a coherent whole. And I'm so glad you mentioned UIW, because you're not only teaching, you're teaching at the University of the Incarnate Word. And so many of the things that you represent to me, Carlos, and from getting to know you more and more, like you are UIW. And I suspect you feel the same way. And so just kind of as a last question is I just want to maybe ask you to comment a little bit on what the University of the Incarnate Word means to you, and how it shaped you, and how you enjoy going and being in a classroom at the University of the Incarnate Word.
Oh, for sure. I love UIW. UIW is definitely, not to sound cliche, but it definitely is a second home. UIW is a place that I love when. As an immigrant, and I won't go much into detail, but as an immigrant, at those crucial years of being 18 and trying to find my place in the world, and what college do I go to? What college is going to accept me? And because of at the time I was in this going through the process of getting my permanent residency, and kind of finalizing that process. Other institutions wouldn't accept me because of that, that legal limbo, right? Even though I was not undocumented, they still saw me as very myopically undocumented, even though I had, my passport and I had all my paperwork in order. UIW saw me differently. They saw me as an individual that could contribute more. And I came to love the institution because of that. When other institutions closed their doors, UIW said, "Well, you have a place here." And as a result of that, and really learning about the mission and the work, and coming from my Catholic background, I really re-ingrained and really double down on the idea of like, well, I'm going to live a life of purpose and intention. And that's sometimes why, like you're saying, my life could seem like it's a little bit chaotic. But at the same time, there's structure to it because I want to live with intention. I want to live with a mission of public service, of doing good in the work that I do, and really advancing that. So the university has laid down that foundation for me, and I've been fortunate to have completed my undergraduate work at the university. I did my MBA at the university, and I also worked through the Office of Research and Graduate Studies, and that those years of working at orgs and the Graduate Support Center really opened me up. I was participating in national conferences at a young age, going to supporting the management of a federal grant that helped increase the rate of Hispanic students graduating with post-baccalaureate degrees. Like you mentioned in my bio, we were recognized by the White House as a bright spot in Hispanic education. And again, it was all very mission-driven. Then as my career evolved, I ended up working with Commissioner Calvert, and the university kind of pulled me back in. One of the first projects that I worked at the county was the funding of the clinical skills lab at the medical school. And we did we managed that budget cycle to secure those funds and be able to establish that. And then fast forward, the university became one of my clients and was my clients for a while. And it was, it opened my eyes to a different perspective of how important the role of UIW is. Not only here in San Antonio as a pillar of our community, but also the global footprint that the university has of building those very authentic bridges of communications and relationships with folks beyond just San Antonio, and how UIW is essentially a place that serves as a vehicle to be able to really open up and broaden your role as a global citizen. Again, kind of thinking globally, acting locally. That is the university. And then as the opportunity came to teach, again, I saw myself as a student and reflected on it. And I'm like, well, I can do that. I can teach and help students find their purpose and live their lives with intention. And if the university allows me that opportunity to do that as a faculty member and show how marketing and advertising and has a much larger role, and you can be mission driven as well, then I'm going to do it. And again, I feel like there's no other institutions that does that as UIW does, where you can do good in life and do well for your community. And it's all because of those foundational pillars of faith and living, being mission driven in your work. That is, part of very much the identity of UIW. And I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the work that the Lewis Center does and being able to bridge into make those connections in Latin America, because I think it's very much needed. There is no other institution that does that as well as UIW and the Lewis Center. And you see that reflected with bringing Rigoberta Menchú to San Antonio. I know as a global figure, she doesn't go very much to, smaller institutions, and yet she came to UIW. And that speaks volumes of the importance and the role that UIW has, and not only being a premier institution for San Antonio, but much larger and in a much global perspective as well. So I'm very grateful for the university. I'm grateful for the mission that the sisters have established, and that's reflected with in all of the work that is being done at the university. And again, I reflect on how I came to the university as a student that didn't have a place, and the doors were open for me to now being a faculty member. I think my journey has come full circle, and I wouldn't be in the role and the positions that I wouldn't be here today without my community support, and that is obviously my family, my mother and father, but also the community that I found at UIW. as well as figures that I've come to learn from and be mentored here in San Antonio. So all of those different factors have really contributed to my success, and I see UIW as a huge anchor of that.
Well, you are proof, Carlos, that what UIW does, it transforms lives, helps our community. I'm so glad that you are still at the university, giving back to the university, and being an example for other students who are just getting their journey started. Congratulations on all the success you're having. I'm so happy that you and I had a chance to become friends and colleagues and to connect. Really, it was Rigoberta Menchú who brought us together. But now, of course, we've got all these other connections. I was just on the phone with Vanessa Lopez this morning. I know that Vane and I work closely together, and I know she's your friend. And anyway, and then we've never marched together at the Cesar Chavez. Maybe this year, maybe this is the year. And we can do it with my friend Arturo Chavez, Dr. Arturo Chavez. It's really a pleasure to connect with you today on this Lewis Center interview series. Carlos, looking forward to connecting with you again soon. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll be in touch here in the coming days. I got a couple of things that just through this conversation of a couple of ideas on how we could collaborate.
Thank you, Dr. El. No, the pleasure is all mine, and again, I'm grateful for the opportunities of the university and to be part of the faculty network. I feel like again, being intentional in my career and living a life with purpose. I'm able to do that through these conversations, through the work that I do as a faculty member, and being able to contribute to my UIW community. So I'm grateful for you for being able to connect in your friendship, and I'm grateful and look forward to the work ahead.
All right, Carlos, thank you very much. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll be in touch soon.
You too. Thank you.